Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Aurora, and welcome to Twin Flame Journey, a space where we explore the deeper meaning behind soul connections, divine timing, and the path that leads two hearts back to union. If you've been feeling the signs, you're in the right place.
Have you ever experienced something that felt too precise to be coincidence? Perhaps you met someone years ago. At the time, the connection felt unusually intense, almost magnetic. Conversations flowed effortlessly. You felt seen in ways you had never experienced before. There was a familiarity that was difficult to explain, as if you had known this person for far longer than the short time you had actually spent together. But then, unexpectedly, life pulled you apart. Maybe circumstances changed. Maybe one of you moved away. Maybe fear, immaturity, or emotional wounds created distance between you. Whatever the reason, the connection faded into memory. Over time, both of you went your separate ways, building new lives, meeting new people, and collecting new experiences. Years passed. Then something strange happened. One day, without planning it, without trying, your paths crossed again. It might have been through a chance meeting at a cafe in a city you both happened to visit. Perhaps you saw their name appear unexpectedly on social media. Maybe a mutual friend mentioned them, and suddenly communication reopened. And in that moment, something felt strangely familiar again. Not identical to before, but unmistakably connected. Many people who believe in the concept of twin flames describe this exact experience. Two people meeting, separating for years, and then somehow finding each other again later in life. The question is, why does this happen? Is it simply coincidence? Or could there be something deeper unfolding beneath the surface of these encounters? The unusual pattern of separation and reunion. In most relationships, separation usually signals the end. People meet, they date, and if the relationship doesn't work, they move on. Sometimes memories linger, but rarely do those connections circle back years later in a meaningful way. Yet in the twin flame journey, many people report a very different pattern. They meet someone who feels profoundly significant. Then, for reasons that often feel confusing or painful, the relationship breaks apart. Years pass. Both individuals change, grow, struggle, and evolve in their own lives. And somehow, at a completely unexpected moment, their paths intersect again. This pattern is so common in twin flame stories that many spiritual teachers refer to it as the separation phase, a period when the two souls walk different paths before potentially reuniting later. But why would something so meaningful require separation in the first place? Why would two people who feel such a powerful connection not simply stay together from the beginning? To understand this, we have to look beyond traditional ideas about relationships and begin to consider a deeper possibility, that the twin flame connection is not only about romance. It may actually be about growth. When two souls meet too early. One of the most fascinating ideas in the twin flame journey is that sometimes two people meet before they are truly ready for each other. At first, this sounds strange. After all, if two people are meant to be together, wouldn't the universe bring them together at the perfect time? But life rarely unfolds in such a simple way. Think about how many people you met earlier in your life who later became important to you. Perhaps you met someone in school who seemed ordinary at the time. Years later, you reconnect and suddenly realize how much you have in common now. Or perhaps you once crossed paths with someone briefly, and only later do you realize how much they would eventually influence your life. Timing plays a powerful role in human relationships. And in the twin flame journey, timing can be even more complex. Sometimes the initial meeting is not meant to begin the final chapter of the relationship. Instead, it serves as an awakening. When twin flames first meet, many people describe an immediate recognition. Something about the other person feels deeply familiar. Conversations dive quickly into meaningful topics. Emotional barriers drop faster than usual. But that intensity can also trigger something else. Hidden fears, unhealed wounds, old emotional patterns. Suddenly, the connection becomes overwhelming. One person may feel the urge to run. The other may feel confused or hurt. Misunderstandings arise. Circumstances shift. And before either person fully understands what is happening, separation occurs. From the outside, it might look like a relationship that simply didn't work. But from a deeper perspective, something important has already begun. The catalyst effect. Many people who explore the twin flame concept believe that meeting your twin flame acts as a catalyst for personal transformation. In other words, the purpose of the connection may not initially be to create a stable relationship. Instead, it awakens parts of you that were previously dormant. Imagine meeting someone who mirrors both your greatest strengths and your deepest insecurities. They see your potential, but they also unknowingly trigger your fears. You might suddenly confront questions you had avoided for years. Am I truly living the life I want? Why do I struggle with trust? Why do I fear being abandoned? Why do I feel unworthy of love? These questions can feel uncomfortable. Sometimes they can even feel painful, but they are also powerful opportunities for growth. And this is where separation often becomes necessary. When the emotional intensity becomes too strong, distance allows both individuals to step away and begin their own personal journeys. Without that space, the relationship might collapse under the weight of unresolved issues. With that space, however, something very different can happen. Growth begins. Life happens in the space between. After separation, life rarely pauses. People move forward. They pursue careers, relationships, friendships, and new experiences. They face heartbreak, success, failure, and moments of deep reflection. During these years apart, something subtle but important is taking place. Both individuals are evolving. The person you were 5 years ago is not the same person you are today. Your beliefs change. Your priorities shift. Your emotional awareness deepens. The same is true for the other person. They too are learning lessons, confronting challenges, and slowly becoming someone different from who they were when you first met. This is why many twin flame reunions happen years later rather than months later. Transformation takes time. Emotional maturity develops gradually. Healing cannot be rushed. And sometimes, the universe seems to wait until both individuals have completed certain personal lessons before allowing their paths to cross again. The question that many people ask. For those who have experienced this type of connection, one question often lingers in their mind. Why did we meet so early if we were not ready? It is a fair question. But perhaps the first meeting was never meant to be the final chapter. Perhaps it was meant to plant a seed. A moment of recognition. A spark that would ignite personal growth in both individuals. Years later, when both people have grown into stronger, more self-aware versions of themselves, that seed may bloom into something new. Or sometimes, the reunion simply brings closure and understanding. Either way, the meeting was never meaningless. A journey that unfolds over time. The twin flame journey is often described not as a straight line, but as a spiral. Two lives move forward, sometimes close together, sometimes far apart, but always evolving. When people meet again after many years, they often realize something surprising. The connection feels different. Calmer. Less chaotic. More grounded. The intensity is still there, but it is no longer overwhelming. Instead of triggering fear, it may now bring peace. Instead of confusion, it may bring clarity. And this raises another intriguing question. What exactly happens during those years of separation that allows two people to finally meet again in a completely different way? To understand that, we must explore the deeper lessons each soul may need to learn before their paths can truly align again. When people first learn about the idea of twin flames, they often imagine a beautiful and effortless love story. Two souls meet. They recognize each other instantly. They fall deeply in love and remain together forever. It sounds simple, but for many people on this path, the reality unfolds very differently. Instead of immediate harmony, the connection often enters a stage that feels confusing, painful, and even contradictory: separation. At first glance, separation seems like the opposite of what a deep spiritual connection should produce. If two people truly share such a profound bond, why would they walk away from each other? Why would something that feels so meaningful suddenly disappear? Yet this phase appears so frequently in twin flame stories that it has become one of the defining parts of the journey. The deeper question is not why separation happens. The real question is what separation is trying to teach. When the mirror becomes too clear. One of the most common descriptions of the twin flame connection is that it acts like a mirror. But this mirror is not limited to reflecting your strengths. It also reflects the parts of yourself you may have spent years avoiding. When you meet someone who seems to understand you deeply, something unusual happens. Your emotional defenses begin to soften. Conversations feel more honest. You may reveal thoughts and feelings you normally keep hidden. At first, this feels liberating. But the deeper the connection grows, the more this mirror begins to reveal. It may reflect your fear of abandonment. It may reveal insecurities you did not realize you carried. It may expose patterns in your relationships that have followed you for years. For example, someone who has always feared being rejected might suddenly become intensely sensitive to small changes in the other person's behavior. A delayed message might feel like a sign of disinterest. A disagreement might feel like a threat to the entire relationship. These reactions are rarely caused by the present moment alone. They are often echoes of past experiences, childhood wounds, previous relationships, or long-held beliefs about love and worthiness. The twin flame connection does not create these wounds. It simply brings them to the surface. And sometimes, that experience becomes overwhelming. The instinct to run. When emotional intensity reaches a certain level, people respond in different ways. Some people move closer, seeking reassurance and deeper connection. Others feel the instinct to pull away. This dynamic is often described as the runner and chaser pattern, where one person withdraws while the other tries to hold the connection together. The person who runs is not necessarily less connected. In many cases, they may actually feel the connection just as strongly. But the intensity triggers fear. They may feel, "This is too much. I'm not ready for this. I don't know how to handle these emotions." Instead of confronting those feelings directly, distance becomes the easiest response. Meanwhile, the other person may feel confused and hurt. How can someone who felt so connected suddenly disappear? They replay conversations, search for answers, and try to understand what went wrong. Yet from a deeper perspective, nothing necessarily went wrong. The connection simply reached a point where unresolved emotions demanded attention. And rather than facing those emotions together, each person must now face them individually. Separation as a turning point. Separation is often described as one of the most painful stages of the twin flame journey. But it is also one of the most transformative. During the relationship itself, emotional reactions often happen too quickly to fully understand them. Arguments escalate. Misunderstandings build. Both individuals react from instinct rather than awareness. Distance creates something that was previously missing: space. In that space, reflection begins. Without the constant emotional triggers of the relationship, people start to look inward. They ask questions they may have avoided before. Why did that relationship affect me so deeply? Why did certain moments trigger such strong reactions? What fears did that connection reveal about me? These questions can lead to powerful self-discovery. For some people, separation becomes the catalyst for therapy, personal development, spiritual exploration, or emotional healing. The relationship that once felt like a source of pain begins to reveal itself as a mirror pointing toward inner growth. Life's lessons begin to unfold. During the years apart, both individuals continue living their lives. They may enter other relationships. They may pursue careers, travel, or personal goals. From the outside, it may appear that the twin flame connection has simply become part of the past. Yet internally, something deeper may still be unfolding. Experiences during this time often teach lessons that were impossible to learn earlier. For example, someone who once relied heavily on validation from others may learn how to build self-confidence independently. Someone who struggled with boundaries may learn to protect their emotional well-being. Someone who feared vulnerability may gradually learn to communicate more openly. These lessons do not happen overnight. They develop slowly through life experiences. Each challenge, each success, and each heartbreak contributes to emotional maturity. Over time, the person who once reacted from fear begins to respond with greater awareness. And that transformation changes everything. The quiet work of healing. One of the most important processes that often occurs during separation is healing. Emotional wounds that were triggered during the relationship begin to receive attention. People start recognizing patterns that once controlled their reactions. For example, someone who always feared abandonment may begin to understand how that fear shaped their behavior in past relationships. Perhaps they realize that they often tried too hard to please others. Perhaps they avoided expressing their true feelings out of fear of rejection. With awareness comes the opportunity for change. Through reflection, therapy, spiritual practice, or personal growth, individuals gradually begin to heal these wounds. This healing does not erase the past, but it transforms the way a person responds to future relationships. Instead of reacting from insecurity, they begin responding from self-respect and emotional stability, becoming someone new. Years after the initial meeting, something remarkable often happens. Both individuals have changed. The person who once struggled with fear may now possess greater confidence. The person who once avoided emotional depth may now understand the value of vulnerability. Life experiences have shaped them into different versions of themselves. And this transformation raises an intriguing possibility. What if the purpose of the separation was not to end the connection, but to allow both individuals to become the people they needed to be? Without that period of growth, the relationship may have remained trapped in the same patterns that caused the original separation. With growth, however, something entirely new becomes possible. A question worth considering. When people eventually reconnect after many years, they often notice something surprising. The dynamic between them feels different. Conversations feel calmer. Misunderstandings resolve more easily. The emotional intensity that once felt overwhelming now feels balanced. Instead of triggering old wounds, the connection may now feel supportive and peaceful. This change does not happen by accident. It is the result of years of personal growth, healing, and emotional maturity. The separation that once felt like loss may reveal itself as preparation. And this leads to an important question. If two people grow and heal enough during their years apart, could the connection between them evolve into something stronger and more stable than it ever could have been before? When people talk about twin flames, the conversation often focuses on the connection between two individuals. The chemistry, the intensity, the feeling that you have finally met someone who understands you at a level no one else ever has. But beneath the powerful emotions and the mysterious pull between two people lies a deeper layer that many overlook. The twin flame journey is not only about two souls meeting.
It is also about two souls evolving.
And one of the most important reasons twin flames often separate for many years is because each individual has personal lessons that must be learned alone. These lessons cannot be rushed. They cannot be skipped. And most importantly, they cannot be learned for someone else. Each soul must walk its own path. Why personal growth cannot be shared. In ordinary relationships, people often grow together. Partners support each other through challenges, celebrate victories together, and build a shared life over time. But the twin flame connection is often described as something more catalytic than comfortable. Instead of simply supporting the life you already have, the connection can shake the very foundation of who you believe you are. Suddenly, questions begin to surface. Am I truly living in alignment with my purpose? Why do I repeat the same patterns in relationships? Why do I sometimes sabotage opportunities that could make me happy? These questions are not easy to answer. And sometimes, the emotional intensity of the connection makes it even harder to confront them honestly. This is why separation becomes such a crucial part of the journey. Without the constant presence of the other person, individuals are forced to face themselves more directly. The focus shifts away from the relationship and towards something much deeper: self-discovery. The lesson of self-love. One of the most common lessons people encounter during the twin flame journey is the lesson of self-love. At first, this idea may sound simple. Most people would say they already love themselves. But when the twin flame connection triggers emotional wounds, many realize that their sense of self-worth may be more fragile than they thought. For example, someone might discover that their happiness depended heavily on the attention or approval of their partner. When the relationship ended, they may have felt as though a part of their identity had been taken away. Questions arise. Who am I without this person? Why do I feel incomplete without them? These feelings can be painful, but they also reveal something important. True self-love does not come from another person. It grows from within. During the years of separation, many people begin learning how to rebuild their sense of identity independently. They develop interests, pursue passions, strengthen friendships, and learn to enjoy their own company. Gradually, the emptiness that once felt overwhelming begins to transform into something else, a sense of wholeness. When someone reaches this stage, the connection with their twin flame no longer feels like a missing piece they desperately need. Instead, it becomes something entirely different, a reflection of the love they already carry within themselves. Learning emotional responsibility. Another important lesson that often unfolds during separation is emotional responsibility. In the early stages of intense relationships, it can be easy to blame the other person for our emotional reactions. If they say something that hurts us, we assume they caused our pain. If they behave in ways that trigger fear or insecurity, we believe they are responsible for those feelings. But emotional growth involves recognizing something deeper. While other people can influence our experiences, our emotional responses often arise from internal patterns developed over many years. For example, someone who grew up feeling ignored may be extremely sensitive to moments when a partner seems distant. Even a small misunderstanding might trigger feelings of abandonment. The partner did not create the wound. They simply activated something that already existed. During separation, individuals have the opportunity to explore these patterns. They begin asking questions like, why do certain situations affect me so strongly? What experiences shape the way I respond to relationships? What fears am I carrying from the past? As these patterns become clearer, people gain the ability to respond more consciously rather than reacting automatically. This transformation can dramatically change how they approach future relationships. Instead of projecting unresolved emotions onto others, they begin taking responsibility for their inner world. The courage to face old wounds. Many of the deepest lessons in the twin flame journey involve confronting emotional wounds that have been buried for years. These wounds may come from childhood, family dynamics, or past relationships. Often, people learn to cope with these experiences by ignoring them or pushing them aside. But the twin flame connection tends to bring these wounds into the light. When two people share a strong emotional bond, hidden vulnerabilities often surface quickly. A fear of abandonment might emerge. A fear of rejection might become visible. Old memories that were never fully processed may suddenly feel relevant again. Separation provides the time and space needed to address these wounds more consciously. For some people, this healing process involves therapy or counseling. For others, it may involve journaling, meditation, or spiritual exploration. There is no single path toward healing. What matters is the willingness to look honestly at the past and acknowledge how it continues to influence the present. This process can be challenging, but it is also incredibly liberating. As emotional wounds begin to heal, individuals often feel lighter, calmer, and more secure within themselves, building a life of purpose. Another lesson that frequently emerges during the years of separation is the discovery of personal purpose. When a relationship ends, people often redirect their attention toward other areas of life. They invest energy in their careers, creative passions, or personal ambitions. What begins as a distraction from emotional pain can eventually become something far more meaningful. Many individuals discover talents and interests they might never have explored if their lives had remained focused on the relationship. They develop confidence through achievements. They meet new mentors, friends, and collaborators. Slowly, their world expands. Instead of defining their identity through a romantic connection, they begin building a life that reflects their own unique path. This transformation creates a strong foundation of independence. And paradoxically, That independence can make future relationships healthier. When two people no longer depend on each other to feel complete, they can connect from a place of strength rather than need. The transformation that happens over time. Years after the initial separation, something remarkable often occurs. Both individuals have changed in ways they never could have predicted during the early days of their connection. The person who once struggled with insecurity may now carry a quiet confidence. The person who once avoided emotional vulnerability may now understand the importance of honest communication. The life lessons learned during separation have reshaped their perspectives. And this raises an intriguing possibility. What if the original relationship ended not because the connection was wrong, but because both individuals still had important personal work to complete? Without that time apart, those lessons might never have been learned. And without those lessons, the relationship may have remained trapped in the same cycles that caused the initial separation. When growth changes everything. As individuals complete these personal lessons, something subtle begins to shift. The intense longing that once defined the connection may gradually transform. Instead of feeling like a desperate need, the connection becomes a quiet presence in the background of their lives. They no longer feel incomplete without the other person. They have built fulfilling lives of their own. Ironically, this is often the stage when something unexpected begins to happen. After years of distance, two paths that once diverged may begin to move closer again. Perhaps a random message appears. Perhaps a chance encounter occurs in a place neither person expected. Perhaps mutual friends reconnect them without realizing the deeper story behind their meeting. And suddenly, two people who once shared a powerful connection find themselves standing face to face again. But this time, they are no longer the same individuals they were before. They are stronger, more self-aware, more emotionally grounded. And this leads to one of the most fascinating questions in the twin flame journey. When two souls finally complete the lessons they needed to learn on their own, what happens when their paths cross again? When twin flames first meet, the connection can feel overwhelming. There is often an immediate sense of familiarity, as if something deep within both people recognizes the other. Conversations feel effortless. Silence feels comfortable. Time seems to move differently when they are together. But alongside this powerful attraction, something else often appears. Emotional intensity. Small misunderstandings can suddenly feel enormous. A brief moment of distance may trigger deep anxiety. Words spoken in frustration may carry far more weight than intended. This intensity is not random. The twin flame connection often activates emotional layers that normally remain hidden in everyday relationships. The bond can feel so strong that it touches parts of the psyche that have been quietly shaping a person's behavior for years. When two people encounter each other at this level of emotional depth before they have developed the tools to handle it, the relationship can quickly become turbulent. This is why emotional maturity becomes one of the most important factors in the twin flame journey. And it is also one of the reasons many twin flames do not reunite until years later. The difference between intensity and stability. In the early stages of a powerful connection, many people mistake emotional intensity for emotional stability. When feelings are strong, it can seem like the relationship must be meaningful or destined. But intensity alone does not create a healthy relationship. In fact, intensity without maturity can easily lead to instability. For example, imagine two people who feel deeply connected but struggle with unresolved emotional patterns. If one person becomes afraid of losing the relationship, they might begin seeking constant reassurance. If the other person feels overwhelmed by that pressure, they might start pulling away to protect their independence. This creates a cycle. The more one person reaches out, the more the other withdraws. The more the other withdraws, the more anxious the first person becomes. Neither person is intentionally trying to hurt the other. They are simply reacting from emotional patterns they have not yet learned to understand. Without emotional maturity, even the strongest connection can become exhausting. What emotional maturity really means. Emotional maturity is often misunderstood. It does not mean that a person never feels jealousy, anger, fear, or sadness. These emotions are natural parts of being human. Instead, emotional maturity refers to the ability to recognize these feelings without letting them control your behavior. A mature individual can pause before reacting. They can ask themselves questions like, "Why am I feeling this way right now? Is this reaction connected to the present moment, or is it related to something from my past? How can I communicate my feelings without attacking or blaming the other person?" This level of awareness does not develop overnight. It usually emerges through years of life experience, reflection, and sometimes painful mistakes. Many people only begin developing this awareness after a relationship ends, and they have the space to look back at what happened. The lessons that life teaches. During the years of separation, both individuals often go through experiences that shape their emotional growth. They may enter other relationships that challenge their assumptions about love. They may face disappointments that force them to develop resilience. They may encounter situations where they realize that their old emotional reactions no longer serve them. For example, someone who once avoided conflict might learn that honest communication is essential for healthy relationships. Another person who once feared vulnerability might discover that emotional openness actually creates deeper trust. These lessons are rarely learned through theory. They are learned through real life, through conversations that went wrong, through misunderstandings that eventually led to greater clarity, through relationships that ended but still offered valuable insights. Over time, these experiences begin to shape a more emotionally grounded version of the person. The ego begins to soften. One of the most significant changes that occurs during emotional growth is the gradual softening of the ego. In the early stages of life, many people see relationships through the lens of personal validation. They may want to feel admired, appreciated, or needed. If their partner behaves in ways that challenge this sense of identity, the ego reacts defensively. Arguments escalate because both people feel the need to protect their sense of self. But emotional maturity slowly transforms this dynamic. As people become more secure within themselves, they no longer depend on external validation to feel worthy. They can admit mistakes without feeling humiliated. They can listen to criticism without immediately becoming defensive. They can acknowledge another person's perspective without feeling that their own identity is under attack. This shift changes the entire atmosphere of a relationship. Instead of two egos competing for control, two individuals begin working together to understand each other more deeply. Learning the power of communication. Another key aspect of emotional maturity is communication. When twin flames first meet, they may feel so connected that they assume the other person will automatically understand their thoughts and feelings. But no matter how strong a connection feels, mind reading is not a reliable form of communication. Without clear expression, misunderstandings can grow quickly. One person may feel hurt but choose to remain silent, hoping the other person will notice. The other person may sense something is wrong, but not know how to address it. Over time, these unspoken emotions can build tension. During the years apart, many individuals learn the importance of expressing themselves honestly and respectfully. They discover that healthy communication involves more than simply sharing emotions. It also involves listening with genuine curiosity. Rather than assuming they know what the other person means, emotionally mature individuals ask questions. They seek clarity. They create space for both perspectives to be heard. When two people develop this skill, even difficult conversations become opportunities for deeper understanding rather than conflict. When two mature energies meet again. Years later, when twin flames encounter each other again, something remarkable often becomes apparent. The emotional atmosphere between them feels different. Where there was once tension, there may now be calm. Where there was once misunderstanding, there may now be patience. The connection may still carry the same magnetic quality as before, but it no longer feels chaotic. Instead, it feels balanced. Both individuals have developed a stronger sense of identity. They no longer rely on the other person to define their worth. Because of this, the relationship can unfold without the pressure that once created conflict. They can appreciate the connection without trying to control it. They can share emotions openly without fear of rejection. They can disagree without assuming the relationship is in danger. This level of emotional stability transforms the nature of the connection. What once felt like an emotional storm may now feel like a quiet but powerful current flowing beneath the surface. The calm after the storm. Many people who reconnect with a former twin flame after years apart describe a surprising realization. The connection is still there, but the drama is gone. The intense emotional turbulence that once defined a relationship has been replaced by something more peaceful. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, they feel understood. Instead of feeling uncertain, they feel safe. This does not mean the relationship suddenly becomes perfect. All relationships require effort and communication. But emotional maturity creates a foundation that makes genuine partnership possible. And this transformation leads to an important realization. The separation that once seemed like a painful ending may actually have been preparing both individuals for a completely different kind of relationship. A relationship not built on emotional dependency, but on mutual respect, growth, and understanding. And yet, emotional maturity is only one part of the transformation that occurs during the years apart. Another powerful change often unfolds beneath the surface. Old emotional wounds begin to heal. And that healing may be one of the most important reasons why twin flames sometimes meet again after so many years. When twin flames first meet, the connection can feel extraordinary. It often carries a sense of depth and familiarity that is difficult to explain. Many people describe it as if they are being seen for the first time in their lives. Conversations feel unusually open. Emotional barriers fall more quickly than they normally would in other relationships. But beneath this powerful sense of recognition lies another reality that is far less comfortable. The twin flame connection does not only reveal love and compatibility. It also exposes wounds. These wounds may have been quietly shaping a person's life for years, often without their full awareness. They can originate from childhood experiences, family dynamics, past relationships, or deeply ingrained beliefs about worthiness and belonging. When two people form such a strong emotional bond, these hidden layers often rise to the surface. And when that happens too quickly, the relationship can become overwhelming. This is one of the reasons separation often occurs in the twin flame journey. It creates the space necessary for healing. The wounds we carry into relationships. Every person enters a relationship with an emotional history. Some of those experiences are joyful and empowering. Others may have left scars that influence how a person responds to intimacy, trust, and vulnerability. For example, someone who experienced emotional neglect during childhood might struggle to believe that another person will truly stay present and supportive. Even in moments of closeness, they may feel a quiet fear that the connection could disappear at any moment. Another person who has faced repeated rejection in previous relationships may develop a strong instinct to protect themselves from being hurt again. They may hold back emotionally, avoiding deep vulnerability even when they care deeply about someone. These patterns often develop as protective mechanisms. They help individuals cope with painful experiences and prevent further emotional harm. However, when a powerful connection like the twin flame relationship appears, these protective strategies can become obstacles. The very defenses that once provided safety may now create distance between two people who genuinely care about each other. When love triggers fear. One of the most surprising aspects of deep emotional connections is that love can sometimes trigger fear. This may seem contradictory. After all, love is often associated with comfort, warmth, and security. But when someone has experienced emotional pain in the past, intimacy can feel risky. Opening your heart to another person means allowing them to see your most vulnerable parts. For someone carrying unresolved wounds, that vulnerability can feel terrifying. The twin flame connection often intensifies this experience because the emotional bond can develop so quickly. A person may suddenly find themselves sharing thoughts and feelings they have never expressed to anyone else. At first, this openness can feel liberating. But soon afterward, fear may begin to surface. What if this person leaves? What if they discover my flaws and decide I'm not enough? What if I lose myself in this relationship? These fears can create powerful emotional reactions. Some people may cling more tightly to the connection, seeking reassurance and constant closeness. Others may pull away suddenly, creating distance in order to regain a sense of control. Both responses are attempts to protect the heart from potential pain. Unfortunately, they can also create misunderstandings that eventually lead to separation. The hidden purpose of separation. When a twin flame relationship ends or enters a long period of distance, it can feel devastating. People often replay the past in their minds, searching for the moment when everything changed. They may wonder whether they said the wrong thing, made a mistake, or failed to hold the relationship together. But from a deeper perspective, separation may serve a different purpose. It allows both individuals to confront the wounds that the connection revealed. During the relationship itself, emotions may have been too intense to fully process. Arguments, misunderstandings, and defensive reactions can make it difficult to see the underlying issues clearly. Once separation occurs, the emotional storm begins to settle. With time and distance, people can start reflecting on their experiences with greater clarity. They begin noticing patterns. Why did certain situations trigger such strong reactions? Why did specific fears appear during moments of closeness? What parts of their past might still be influencing their present behavior? These questions often mark the beginning of a healing journey. The process of healing. Healing emotional wounds is rarely a quick or simple process. It requires patience, honesty, and a willingness to explore parts of oneself that may have been hidden for many years. For some individuals, this journey begins through therapy or counseling, where they can explore their emotional history with professional guidance. For others, healing may unfold through spiritual practices such as meditation, journaling, or self-reflection. Many people also experience healing through life experiences themselves. New friendships, supportive communities, and personal achievements can gradually reshape how a person sees themselves and their place in the world. One of the most powerful aspects of healing is the realization that past wounds do not define a person's future. Someone who once believed they were unworthy of love may slowly discover that this belief was shaped by earlier experiences rather than by truth. As this realization grows stronger, self-confidence begins to develop. Emotional reactions that once felt uncontrollable become easier to manage. Fear gradually loses its grip, releasing old emotional patterns. Another important aspect of healing involves recognizing and releasing old patterns that once governed behavior. For example, someone who feared abandonment might previously have responded to conflict by trying to please their partner at any cost. They may have ignored their own needs in order to keep the relationship stable. Through healing, they begin to understand that healthy relationships require balance. Their needs matter just as much as their partners'. Another individual who once avoided vulnerability may start learning that openness does not automatically lead to rejection. By slowly practicing honest communication, they discover that sharing emotions can actually strengthen trust rather than weaken it. These shifts in behavior may seem small at first, but they create profound changes in how a person experiences relationships. Instead of reacting from fear, they begin responding from self-awareness and emotional stability, becoming emotionally whole. Over time, the healing process leads to something incredibly important: a sense of emotional wholeness. This does not mean that all pain disappears or that a person becomes immune to future challenges. Instead, it means that individuals develop a stronger internal foundation. They understand their emotions more clearly. They recognize their triggers and know how to respond to them in healthier ways. They no longer depend entirely on another person to provide a sense of security or validation. This transformation changes the nature of relationships. When two people connect from a place of emotional wholeness rather than emotional need, the relationship becomes far more balanced. There is less pressure, less fear, more freedom to simply appreciate the connection for what it is. When healing changes the connection. Years after the original separation, when twin flames cross paths again, this healing often becomes visible in subtle ways. Conversations may feel easier. Old triggers may no longer create the same reactions. Both individuals may sense that something fundamental has changed. Where there was once fear, there may now be understanding. Where there was once insecurity, there may now be calm. The wounds that once caused distance no longer hold the same power. Instead of repeating the patterns that led to separation, both individuals now have the emotional awareness to approach the connection differently. This does not guarantee that they will automatically begin a relationship again, but it does create the possibility for a new kind of interaction, one that is not controlled by unresolved pain, one that is guided by growth, awareness, and mutual respect. And when two people reach this stage of healing, something fascinating often begins to happen. The connection that once seemed impossible to maintain may start to feel surprisingly natural again, as if the timing that once felt wrong has finally aligned. But healing alone does not fully explain why twin flames sometimes meet again after many years. There is another subtle force that many people describe during this stage of the journey. It is the feeling that life itself begins arranging unexpected encounters, moments that feel strangely precise, synchronicities that seem almost impossible to ignore. And these mysterious alignments may play a powerful role in bringing two paths together once more. One of the most mysterious aspects of the twin flame journey is how two people can spend years, sometimes decades, living completely separate lives, yet somehow find their paths crossing again later. During the period of separation, it may seem as if the connection has faded into the past. Both individuals move forward, building new experiences and shaping their lives in ways that appear entirely independent of each other. They may live in different cities. They may build careers in different industries. They may form new relationships, friendships, and routines. From the outside, their lives look unrelated. Yet beneath the surface, something deeper may still be unfolding. Because even though their physical paths have diverged, their inner journeys may be moving in ways that gradually prepare them for a future moment of alignment. Life does not move in straight lines. Many people imagine life as a linear progression. You meet someone. You develop a relationship. You build a future together. But in reality, life often moves in more complex patterns. People change careers unexpectedly. They move to different places. They develop new beliefs and interests over time. Sometimes individuals who once shared very little in common gradually evolve in ways that bring them closer together years later. This is particularly noticeable in the twin flame journey. When two people first meet, they may feel a strong emotional connection but still be at very different stages of personal development. Perhaps one person is focused on career ambitions while the other is exploring their spiritual identity. Perhaps one person seeks stability while the other is still discovering who they are. These differences can make it difficult for the relationship to develop in a balanced way. Instead of forcing the connection to work prematurely, life often guides both individuals towards separate experiences that help them grow in the areas they most need to develop. Growth through different experiences. During the years apart, both individuals often encounter situations that shape their perspective on life and relationships. For example, one person may experience the challenges of building a demanding career. They may learn discipline, responsibility, and independence through years of professional growth. Another person may go through profound emotional experiences, such as caring for family members, overcoming personal hardships, or exploring spiritual practices. These experiences may appear unrelated at first, but each one contributes to the development of qualities that are essential for deeper relationships. Patience, empathy, resilience, self-awareness. Without these experiences, a person might remain trapped in earlier versions of themselves. But life has a way of presenting lessons exactly when they are needed. Over time, the person who once struggled with uncertainty becomes more grounded. The person who once feared vulnerability learns how to open their heart. The person who once avoided responsibility learns how to build stability. These transformations happen gradually, often without conscious awareness. Yet they shape who each individual becomes. The invisible synchronization. One of the most intriguing ideas in the twin flame journey is that even while living separate lives, both individuals may be growing in ways that eventually bring them into alignment. This process can be described as a kind of invisible synchronization. Not in the sense that their lives unfold in identical ways, but in the sense that both are gradually developing the emotional and psychological qualities needed for deeper connection. For instance, Imagine two people who once struggled with insecurity and emotional defensiveness when they first met. During the years apart, each person faces different life challenges that require them to develop confidence and emotional resilience. One learns through career struggles. The other learns through personal relationships and inner reflection. Although their experiences differ, both are moving toward greater maturity. When they eventually meet again, they are no longer the same individuals they once were. The emotional dynamics that previously created conflict may no longer exist. Instead, the connection can unfold with a level of stability that was impossible in the past. The role of timing. Timing plays a crucial role in many relationships, but in the twin flame journey, it can feel particularly significant. There are moments in life when people simply are not ready for certain experiences. A person might meet someone extraordinary during a period when they are overwhelmed with personal struggles. Another person might encounter a meaningful connection while still carrying unresolved emotional wounds. Even the strongest bond cannot thrive if one or both individuals lack the capacity to nurture it. This is why timing sometimes delays certain relationships. Not because the connection lacks importance, but because both individuals need time to grow into the people capable of sustaining it. Years later, circumstances may look completely different. Careers have stabilized. Emotional wounds have healed. Personal goals have become clearer. When two people meet again under these new conditions, the connection may suddenly feel more natural and less complicated. What once seemed impossible may now feel surprisingly easy. When paths begin to converge. After years of moving in separate directions, something subtle often begins to happen. The distance between the two paths slowly decreases. This does not necessarily mean that the individuals are consciously trying to reconnect. In many cases, the convergence happens through ordinary life events. One person moves to a new city that happens to be close to where the other now lives. A mutual friend reconnects them without realizing the deeper significance of their introduction. A professional opportunity brings them into the same environment again. Sometimes the reconnection happens through something as simple as a message. A brief conversation that begins casually but quickly reawakens a familiar sense of understanding. These encounters can feel almost uncanny. People often describe them as coincidences that seem too precise to be random. While some view these moments as simple chance, others believe they represent the natural result of two life paths gradually moving back toward each other after years of personal growth. The surprise of meeting again. When twin flames encounter each other again after many years, the experience can feel both familiar and completely new. At first, there may be a moment of recognition, not only of the other person, but of the connection that once existed between them. Yet something feels different. The emotional atmosphere has changed. The intensity that once created confusion may now feel calm and balanced. Conversations may flow more naturally. There may be a sense that both individuals have gained the perspective needed to appreciate the connection without becoming overwhelmed by it. Instead of reliving the emotional chaos of the past, they may find themselves interacting with a sense of curiosity and openness. They begin discovering who the other person has become, what lessons they have learned, how their lives have evolved. And sometimes, this rediscovery leads to an unexpected realization. The connection that once felt impossible may now feel entirely possible. The journey that prepared the meeting. Looking back, many people who experience this type of reunion begin to see their years apart in a different light. What once seemed like a painful separation may reveal itself as a necessary stage in their personal evolution. The experiences they gained during that time were not random. They were shaping them into the people they needed to become. Without those years of growth, the relationship might have repeated the same patterns that caused the original separation. But with that growth, the dynamic between them can transform. Instead of two individuals struggling with unresolved fears and insecurities, there are now two people who understand themselves more deeply. This understanding creates the possibility for a completely new kind of connection. One that is built not on emotional dependency, but on mutual respect, awareness, and choice. And yet, even when two people have grown significantly during their years apart, something else often plays a mysterious role in their reunion. Many individuals describe moments that feel strangely orchestrated by life itself. Unexpected encounters, meaningful coincidences, events that seem to guide them back into each other's orbit. These moments are often described as synchronicities. And for many people on the twin flame journey, synchronicity becomes one of the most fascinating signs that two paths may be aligning once again. When people who have experienced the twin flame journey talk about meeting again after many years, they often describe something unusual about the way it happens. It rarely feels ordinary. Instead, the reunion is often surrounded by a series of small events that seem strangely connected, as if life itself has been quietly arranging the meeting behind the scenes. A person might randomly think about someone they have not spoken to in years, only to receive a message from them the next day. Two people who once lived in different countries might unexpectedly move to the same city around the same time. Someone might repeatedly encounter reminders of the other person, their name, their favorite song, a place they once visited together, shortly before crossing paths again. These experiences are often described as synchronicities. While some people see them as coincidences, others believe they represent meaningful patterns that appear when two life paths are gradually moving back into alignment. In the context of the twin flame journey, synchronicity often becomes especially noticeable during the period leading up to reunion. What is synchronicity? The term synchronicity was originally introduced by a Swiss psychologist. He used the word to describe events that appear meaningfully related, even though they do not have a clear cause and effect relationship. For example, imagine thinking about an old friend you have not spoken to in years, and moments later receiving a message from them. There is no obvious physical mechanism connecting your thoughts to the message. Yet the timing feels too precise to ignore. According to Jung, synchronicity represents moments when inner experiences and outer events seem to mirror each other in meaningful ways. These moments often occur during periods of psychological transformation, when individuals are becoming more aware of their inner world. Interestingly, many people who explore the twin flame journey report experiencing a surge of synchronicities during periods of personal growth or emotional awakening. Why synchronicities appear during growth? During times of deep personal transformation, people often become more attentive to patterns in their lives. They reflect more deeply on their experiences. They notice connections that might have previously gone unnoticed. This heightened awareness can make synchronicities feel more frequent or more meaningful. But there may also be another explanation. When people grow and evolve, they often begin making choices that align more closely with their authentic selves. They pursue careers that reflect their passions. They develop friendships with people who share their values. They move toward environments that support their personal growth. These changes gradually reshape the direction of their lives. And sometimes, these shifts bring them closer to people they were once connected with. From this perspective, synchronicities may not be supernatural events. They may simply be moments when multiple life paths intersect in ways that reveal previously hidden connections. The subtle signs before reunion. Many individuals who later reconnect with a twin flame describe experiencing subtle signs before the reunion occurs. These signs can take many forms. Some people notice recurring numbers on clocks or license plates. Others repeatedly hear songs that remind them of the person. Sometimes dreams about the other person begin appearing more frequently. In other cases, mutual friends unexpectedly mention the person after years of silence. Individually, these moments may seem insignificant, but when they occur repeatedly within a short period of time, they can create the feeling that something meaningful is approaching. For people who believe in the spiritual dimension of the twin flame journey, these synchronicities may feel like signals that the timing for reunion is drawing closer. For those who prefer a psychological explanation, they may simply represent the mind's increased sensitivity to meaningful memories and emotional connections. Either way, these patterns often create a sense of anticipation. The power of shared timing. Another fascinating aspect of synchronicity is that both individuals sometimes experience similar shifts around the same time. Without communicating, they may begin reflecting on their past relationships simultaneously. They may start wondering how the other person is doing. They may feel an unexplained urge to reach out. In some cases, Both individuals attempt to reconnect within days or weeks of each other, without realizing that the other person was thinking the same thing. These shared moments of timing can feel uncanny, but they may simply reflect the fact that both individuals have reached similar stages of personal growth. After years of life experiences, both people may have finally completed the emotional lessons that once kept them apart. When that happens, the psychological barriers that previously blocked communication may gradually dissolve. What once felt impossible now feels natural. Reaching out no longer feels frightening. Instead, it feels like a simple step toward understanding. When life creates the opportunity, sometimes synchronicity appears not through thoughts or memories, but through real-world circumstances. Two people may attend the same event without knowing the other will be there. They may accept jobs in the same company after years of living in different places. They may run into each other while traveling in a city neither of them expected to visit. Stories like these are surprisingly common among people who reconnect with someone from their past. When they look back at the chain of events that led to the meeting, the timing can feel almost perfectly arranged. If just one small decision had been different, choosing a different flight, declining a particular invitation, moving to another neighborhood, the encounter might never have happened. This sense of precise timing often leaves people wondering whether their reunion was simply a coincidence or something more meaningful. The emotional impact of synchronicity. Regardless of how one interprets these experiences, synchronicity often has a powerful emotional impact. It can create a sense of wonder. It can make people feel as though their lives are connected in ways they do not fully understand. For individuals who have spent years reflecting on a past connection, these moments can feel like confirmation that their experiences were not imagined. The connection may still hold significance. The story may not have ended when they once believed it did. This realization can reopen conversations that were left unfinished. It can encourage two people to explore whether the connection they once shared still exists in the present. Seeing the connection with new eyes. When twin flames finally meet again after years of separation, the experience is often shaped by the growth both individuals have undergone. The synchronicities that led them back together may feel mysterious, but the interaction itself often feels surprisingly simple. Instead of intense emotional confusion, there may be calm curiosity. Instead of overwhelming attraction mixed with fear, there may be a quiet recognition of how much both individuals have changed. They begin learning about the lives each of them built during the years apart. They discover new interests, new perspectives, and new strengths. And sometimes, they realize that the connection they once experienced has not disappeared. It has simply evolved. The moment of choice. However, synchronicity alone does not determine the future of the relationship. Even if two people meet again through a series of meaningful events, they still face an important decision. What will they do with this second chance? The past cannot be undone. The years apart cannot be erased. But the present offers something powerful, the ability to choose how the connection moves forward. For some people, this reunion becomes the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. For others, it becomes a moment of closure and mutual understanding. Both outcomes can carry deep meaning. What matters most is that the reunion happens at a time when both individuals are capable of approaching it with greater awareness and emotional balance. And when two people meet again under those conditions, the connection between them often feels profoundly different from what it once was. The question is no longer whether they feel a strong bond. The real question becomes something far more important. Now that they have grown, healed, and found their way back to the same moment in time, what kind of relationship are they truly ready to create together? After years of separation, personal growth, emotional healing, and countless life experiences, there sometimes comes a moment that feels almost surreal. Two people who once shared a powerful connection suddenly find themselves standing in the same space again. For some, the reunion happens through a simple message, a casual greeting that begins with something like, "It's been a long time, how have you been?" For others, the encounter occurs in a more unexpected way. A chance meeting at a cafe, a mutual friend bringing them into the same room, a professional event neither of them expected the other to attend. No matter how it happens, the first moment of seeing each other again often carries a strange mixture of emotions. Familiarity, curiosity, a quiet sense that something unfinished has just reappeared in their lives. But what surprises many people most is that the reunion rarely feels exactly the way they imagined. Instead of explosive emotions or overwhelming intensity, it often feels calmer, almost peaceful. And this difference reveals just how much both individuals have changed. The first moment of recognition. When twin flames meet again after years apart, the first few moments can feel suspended in time. There is often a brief pause. Both people recognize each other immediately, but at the same time they may feel as though they are meeting a completely new version of the person they once knew. The physical appearance may have changed slightly. The voice may carry more confidence. The body language may reflect greater calm. Yet beneath these changes, something still feels familiar. It is not necessarily the same intense energy that once defined their connection. Instead, it is often a subtle sense of recognition. As if two people who once shared an important chapter of life are quietly acknowledging that chapter without needing to explain it. Sometimes a simple smile is enough to communicate what words cannot. The absence of the old chaos. One of the most striking differences during reunion is the absence of the emotional chaos that may have existed in the past. When twin flames first meet, their connection can feel like an emotional storm. Passion mixes with confusion. Excitement mixes with fear. Moments of deep closeness are sometimes followed by sudden distance. But years of personal growth can transform this dynamic. When both individuals have developed emotional maturity and healed many of their old wounds, the connection often feels more balanced. There is less urgency, less pressure to define the relationship immediately. Instead of trying to control the direction of the connection, both people may simply allow it to unfold naturally. This shift can feel surprisingly comforting. The same person who once triggered intense emotional reactions may now feel easy to be around. Conversations flow without tension. Silences feel peaceful rather than awkward. The connection that once felt overwhelming now feels grounded. Rediscovering each other. Reunion is not simply about returning to the past. It is about discovering who each person has become during the years apart. The individuals who meet again are not the same people who separated long ago. They have experienced different relationships. They have faced challenges and victories. They have developed new interests, beliefs, and perspectives. Because of this, reunion often involves a process of rediscovery. Two people who once knew each other deeply now begin learning about each other again. They ask questions. Where did life take you? What lessons did you learn along the way? What dreams are you pursuing now? These conversations can reveal how dramatically both lives have changed. And sometimes, they uncover something remarkable. Despite all the differences that have developed over the years, there may still be a strong sense of alignment between them. The values they once shared may have deepened. The emotional understanding they once felt may have matured. Instead of simply remembering who the other person used to be, they begin appreciating who the other person has become. Letting go of old expectations. Another important aspect of reunion is the release of old expectations. When people think about reconnecting with someone from their past, they often imagine that the relationship will return to exactly what it once was. But in reality, this rarely happens. And in many cases, it should not happen. The past version of the relationship existed under different circumstances, different levels of maturity, different emotional awareness. Trying to recreate that version can prevent the connection from evolving into something healthier. During reunion, both individuals may realize that the relationship must be approached in a completely new way. Rather than clinging to memories or unresolved emotions from the past, they have the opportunity to create something fresh. This requires openness. It requires letting go of old resentments. It requires seeing each other as the people they are today, rather than the people they once were. When both individuals can do this, the reunion becomes more than a nostalgic encounter. It becomes the beginning of a new possibility, a different kind of connection. One of the most beautiful aspects of reunion is that the connection often transforms into something deeper but calmer. The intense emotional swings that once defined the relationship may no longer dominate the interaction. Instead, the connection may feel steady, supportive, grounded. Two people who once struggled to understand each other may now communicate more clearly. They may listen more patiently. They may respect each other's independence in ways that were not possible before. The relationship begins to feel less like an emotional battle and more like a partnership. This does not mean that every reunion automatically leads to a romantic relationship. Sometimes the connection evolves into a deep friendship. Sometimes it becomes a brief but meaningful encounter that brings closure. But in many cases, the reunion reveals that both individuals are now capable of something they once lacked. A healthy connection. The moment of realization. At some point during the reunion, many people experience a quiet realization. The years apart were not meaningless. Every experience, every challenge, every lesson contributed to the growth that made this moment possible. The person sitting across from them is no longer the same individual who once walked away. They are someone who has lived, learned, and evolved. And the same is true for themselves. This realization can transform how they see the entire journey. What once felt like a painful separation may now appear as a necessary stage of growth. Without those years apart, neither person might have become who they are today. And without that transformation, the reunion may never have felt so natural. The new question that appears. After the initial excitement and curiosity of reunion begin to settle, a deeper question often emerges. Now that both individuals have grown, now that they understand themselves and each other more clearly, what does this connection mean moving forward? Should they rebuild a relationship? Should they simply appreciate the moment and allow their lives to continue separately? Or should they explore whether this new version of their connection has the potential to become something meaningful again? There is no single answer to this question. Every twin flame reunion unfolds differently. What matters most is that both individuals now have something they lacked in the past.
Clarity.
They can approach the situation not from fear or emotional chaos, but from awareness and choice. And when two people reach this point in their journey, the reunion becomes something far more powerful than a coincidence. It becomes a moment of possibility. A moment when two souls who once walked separate paths have the opportunity to decide, together, what their connection will become next. Years may pass. Cities may change. Lives may transform in ways neither of you ever imagined. Yet when twin flames meet again after a long separation, there is often a strange realization that arises almost instantly. The connection never actually disappeared. It was quiet. It was hidden beneath the noise of life. But it was never gone. And this is what many people misunderstand about the twin flame journey. Separation is not the end of the connection. It is simply a period where the connection moves from the outside world to the inside world. The illusion of distance. When two twin flames separate, the physical distance can feel enormous. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's years. Sometimes even decades. During that time, each person builds a completely different life. New careers, new relationships, new identities. From the outside, it may look as if the bond has dissolved completely. Friends might say, "Why are you still thinking about them? Move on. It was just a relationship from the past." And for a while, you might try to believe that too. You might convince yourself that the connection was just youthful intensity, just nostalgia, just unfinished emotions. But deep inside, something doesn't quite align with that explanation. Because despite everything, the memory carries a different quality. Not just emotional, but almost energetic. It's not just remembering a person. It's remembering a version of yourself that existed only in their presence. The energetic thread. Many people describe the twin flame bond as an invisible thread connecting two souls. Not in a possessive or controlling way, but more like two instruments tuned to the same frequency. Even when separated, they still resonate. You may not speak for years, but sometimes strange things happen. You think of them suddenly for no reason. A song reminds you of them unexpectedly. You dream of them vividly after not thinking about them for months. or you feel a sudden wave of emotion that seems to appear out of nowhere. These experiences are not proof of destiny, but they reveal something important. Certain connections imprint themselves deeply into our psyche. Twin flames, in particular, often create a psychological and emotional mirror so strong that it becomes impossible to completely erase. Not because the other person owns part of you, but because the experience changed you permanently. When both paths continue, one of the most fascinating aspects of long twin flame separations is that both individuals often undergo profound transformations without realizing the other is doing the same. During those years apart, each person walks their own path. One may travel across countries. Another may dive into personal development. One might experience heartbreak. Another may face career failures or major life lessons. Each challenge shapes them. Each experience adds depth. Each mistake teaches humility. And slowly, almost invisibly, both people begin evolving into different versions of themselves. Not the impulsive, wounded, reactive individuals who first met, but something calmer, something wiser, something more aware. The growth happens in parallel, like two rivers flowing through different landscapes, yet slowly bending toward the same ocean. The moment of unexpected crossing. When twin flames meet again after years apart, the moment is rarely dramatic in the way movies portray. There is often no grand music, no perfectly scripted reunion. Sometimes it happens through something surprisingly ordinary. A message on social media, a random meeting in a familiar place, a mutual friend reconnecting two circles. And yet the moment itself carries a strange stillness, as if time briefly folds in on itself. You look at them and realize something immediately. They are both familiar and completely new. Their face carries traces of the person you once knew, but their energy feels different, more grounded, more mature, less reactive. And the same may be true for you. This is when many twin flames realize that the separation years were not wasted time. They were preparation, seeing each other with new eyes. One of the biggest shifts that happens during reunion after long separation is perception. When twin flames first meet, the connection is often intense but chaotic. Emotions run high. Triggers appear quickly. Old wounds surface. Expectations clash. But after years of personal growth, the same two people may meet again with completely different awareness. Instead of projecting fears onto each other, they begin to recognize them. Instead of reacting immediately, they pause. Instead of demanding validation, they offer understanding. It's not that the connection becomes less powerful. In fact, it often becomes even deeper. But the chaos that once surrounded it begins to dissolve. Because both individuals now carry emotional tools they didn't have before. The realization that time was necessary. Perhaps the most profound realization during a twin flame reunion is this. If we had stayed together back then, we might have destroyed this connection. It's a difficult truth to accept. But many twin flames recognize it immediately. The earlier versions of themselves were not ready. Too reactive. Too wounded. Too dependent on external validation. The separation forced both individuals to grow in ways they never would have if they had stayed together. Independence. Self-worth. Boundaries. Emotional resilience. All of these qualities develop more easily when you're forced to stand on your own. And by the time twin flames meet again, they often realize something remarkable. The distance didn't break the bond. It protected it. A connection that no longer needs proof. When twin flames reunite after many years, something interesting happens. The need to define the connection often disappears. Earlier in the journey, both people might have asked questions like, "Are we meant to be? Is this destiny? Is this my twin flame?" But after long periods of growth and self-discovery, those questions lose their urgency. Because the connection no longer needs validation. It simply exists. It is experienced rather than analyzed. There is less obsession with labels, less anxiety about outcomes, more presence in the moment. And this shift alone changes everything. Because the relationship stops being about filling a void and starts becoming about sharing a path. The quiet strength of mature union. If reunion does occur after years of separation, it often feels very different from the first encounter. The passion may still exist. The familiarity may still be powerful, but the foundation has changed. Now there is space, respect, independence. Two individuals who have learned how to stand on their own feet, choosing to walk together. Not out of need, but out of alignment. This is what makes late twin flame reunions so powerful. They are not built on fantasy.
They're built on growth.
The invisible thread revealed. Looking back, many twin flames eventually understand something profound about their journey. The connection was never meant to be linear. It was never meant to follow a predictable timeline. Instead, it unfolded like a spiral. Two souls moving apart, evolving separately, and then crossing paths again at a higher level of awareness. And when that happens, the years of separation suddenly make sense. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every lesson, they were not obstacles. They were part of the preparation. The invisible thread never broke. It simply stretched across time until both souls were ready to recognize it again. Before many twin flames meet again after years apart, something unusual often begins to happen. Life starts whispering. Not loudly, not dramatically, but through subtle patterns that slowly become impossible to ignore. Many people who experience a twin flame reunion later look back and realize that the universe seemed to be dropping small hints long before the actual meeting occurred. At the time, these moments may feel random, coincidental, even meaningless. But once the reunion happens, they often take on a deeper significance. It is as if reality itself had been quietly rearranging pieces on the chessboard, preparing for the moment when two paths would cross again. But what are these signs? And why do they appear? To understand this, we must first look at what happens internally before the external reunion becomes possible. The inner shift that comes first. One of the most consistent patterns reported in twin flame journeys is that reunion rarely begins in the physical world. It begins within. Before the external meeting happens, both individuals often go through a profound internal shift. This shift may not seem connected to the twin flame at first. In fact, many people reach a stage where they have genuinely stopped expecting reunion. They may have accepted the past, moved forward with their lives, focused on personal growth, careers, friendships, or spiritual development. The obsessive longing that once dominated their thoughts begins to fade. And in its place, something much calmer appears. Acceptance.
Peace.
A quiet understanding that life will unfold as it should. Ironically, this emotional detachment is often the moment when energetic alignment begins to happen again. Because the connection is no longer fueled by need. It is fueled by wholeness. And when two people reach that state independently, the conditions for reunion quietly start forming. Synchronicities begin to multiply. One of the most commonly reported experiences before a twin flame reunion is the sudden increase in synchronicities. Synchronicities are meaningful coincidences, events that seem too perfectly timed to be purely random. For example, you may suddenly start seeing the same numbers repeatedly. 11:11 on the clock. 222 on license plates. 444 appearing in phone numbers or receipts. At first, it might seem like simple coincidence. But when these patterns start appearing everywhere, they often feel strangely personal. As if reality itself is trying to catch your attention. Sometimes the synchronicities involve memories connected to the twin flame. A song you used to share together suddenly plays in an unexpected place. A place you once visited together appears in a conversation. A mutual friend mentions their name out of nowhere. These moments can feel like echoes from another timeline gently resurfacing in the present. Dreams that feel too real. Another common sign that appears before twin flames meet again is the sudden return of vivid dreams.
These are not ordinary dreams.
They often feel unusually emotional, unusually clear, and sometimes almost interactive. In these dreams, the twin flame may appear in ways that feel deeply meaningful. Sometimes the two of you simply talk. Sometimes you reconnect peacefully. Sometimes there is a sense of closure or forgiveness. And sometimes there is nothing more than a quiet moment of presence. When people wake up from these dreams, they often feel a strange mixture of emotions: comfort, confusion, curiosity. It can feel as if the subconscious mind is processing unfinished emotional threads that once existed between the two souls. Whether these dreams are psychological or spiritual in nature is open to interpretation. But what matters most is the emotional shift they often create. They soften the past. They dissolve old resentment. They create space for something new. Unexpected reminders appear. Another pattern many people report before twin flame reunions is the sudden appearance of reminders connected to the past. You might discover an old photograph. Find an old message thread you forgot existed. Hear someone mention their hometown. Or come across an object that once held special meaning. These reminders often appear when you least expect them. And interestingly, they rarely create the same emotional pain they once did. Instead of sadness, there may be curiosity. Instead of longing, there may be quiet reflection. The past begins to feel less like a wound and more like a chapter in a story that shaped who you are today. This emotional neutrality is important because it signals that healing has taken place. And healing is often the final step before two paths can safely intersect again. A sudden intuition. Sometimes, the most mysterious sign before a twin flame reunion is a quiet, intuitive feeling. There may be no clear evidence, no obvious reason, but something inside you begins to whisper that a shift is happening. It might appear as a simple thought, "I feel like something is about to change," or a strange sense of anticipation without knowing exactly why. This intuition is rarely dramatic. It doesn't feel like certainty. It feels more like an inner awareness that life is slowly opening a door. And whether that door leads to reunion or simply another lesson, the feeling itself often signals that a new chapter is beginning. The universe doesn't force timing. One of the most important things to understand about these signs is that they do not guarantee reunion. They simply suggest alignment. Two lives that once moved in completely different directions may now be moving in ways that allow intersection again. But whether the reunion happens or whether the paths briefly cross before diverging again depends on many factors: free will, emotional readiness, life circumstances. The twin flame journey is not about forcing a specific outcome. It is about growth. And sometimes the greatest lesson is learning to release expectations completely. Because paradoxically, the moment you stop demanding a specific future, life often becomes more open to unexpected possibilities. When paths finally cross again. If reunion does happen after years apart, it rarely feels like fate controlling two people. Instead, it feels like two individuals who have changed enough to meet each other in a new way. The old patterns may still exist, but now there is awareness. Now there is maturity. Now there is choice. And that choice is what makes the connection different. Because this time, the relationship is not built on emotional dependency. It is built on conscious participation. Two people choosing to walk the same path, not because they must, but because they are ready. The deeper meaning of the journey. Looking back, many people who experience a twin flame reunion realize something surprising. The journey was never only about finding the other person. It was about finding themselves. The separation forced growth. The pain revealed hidden wounds. The distance created independence. And by the time reunion becomes possible, both individuals have become far more complete versions of themselves. In that sense, the twin flame journey is less about romance and more about transformation. Two souls acting as catalysts for each other's evolution. Whether they ultimately remain together or not becomes almost secondary. Because the real gift of the connection was the awakening it triggered. If you have ever wondered why some twin flames meet again after many years, the answer may lie in something simple yet profound. Growth takes time. Healing takes time. Maturity takes time. Two people may meet early in life before they are ready to truly understand each other. And sometimes the universe allows them to separate, evolve, and rediscover themselves before bringing them back together again. Not to repeat the past, but to create something entirely new. Because when two souls meet again after becoming stronger, wiser, and more whole, Their reunion is no longer driven by longing. It is guided by alignment. If this story resonated with you, you are not alone. Many people across the world are walking similar journeys of growth, healing, and rediscovery. The twin flame path can be confusing, emotional, and sometimes deeply transformative. But it also reminds us of something powerful. The most important reunion we will ever experience is the reunion with ourselves. And once that happens, life has a mysterious way of bringing the right people back into our path, often when we least expect it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever reconnected with someone important after many years apart? Or experienced strange synchronicities before meeting someone again? Your story might inspire someone else who is walking the same path. And remember, sometimes the longest journeys are the ones that lead us exactly where we were meant to be.
Thank you for spending this moment with me. If this message resonated with your soul, remember to subscribe and continue this journey with us here on Twin Flame Journey. And always remember, what is meant for your soul will always find its way back to you.